Tracy made it look like anybody could act. I know several people have mistakenly gone into the business or whatever, thinking that
Yes.
All it takes is to get out there and just be natural and say it like real life, and that's all there is to it.
Oh, the tremendous effort, the tremendous art that went into that, deliberately hiding from the audience any technique whatsoever, so that it seemed that he was there by accident. I went to watch him work once at MGM, and he was doing a film called The Actress, I think it was called, with Gene Simmons. And I'd read the script, and he had a very long speech about poverty and the bitterness that poverty makes in people and so on. And it was a really eloquent piece of writing. And the actor's gums as to ached to get my teeth onto the speech. And I wanted to see how Spencer Tracy would do it. And so I sat there, and there was Gene Simmons and Gene Simmons' mother in the film, and Spence played her father. And he started munching a piece of bread, I think it was, as the speech started. And he spoke the speech chewing all the time. One time he left the room, so a good third of the speech he wasn't on screen, and he walked back into the room still chewing. And it was devastating. Devastating.
That was the final version. That's how he did it.
I
That
think,
was not just
I
an
don't know,
exercise.
I never saw the film, but that's what I saw. It was extraordinary, because it's the exact opposite of what I thought he would do with it.
Do you think he always had that? Is it something he learned? Suppose if you saw early Tracy, you would see mannered, stiff acting?
No, I saw, through Katharine Hepburn's good graces, I saw a lot of his early films, like Fury, which was a very fine film. I don't know if you remember it, where, he's a lynch mob burns down a jail, and he's in there, Tracy's in there, and there are cameras taking pictures of this burning of the jail, and everybody thinks he's been killed, burned to death. But in actual fact, he's alive. And then you come in, you don't know, the audience doesn't know that he's alive. And then suddenly there's a man sitting at the table like this, and the camera is on this head, and he lifted his head, and it was Tracy. And the look on his face, I mean, before that he'd been a happy-go-lucky, jolly fella driving across country to meet his girlfriend. The look on his face was so unbelievably terrifying. The bitterness because of what they tried to do to this innocent, happy-go-lucky, most happy fella. It was extraordinary. Yeah, it's worth seeing.
See.
But I'm not a film buff, so I'm not very good.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Do you ever feel, there's a proverb, to beware of what you wish for because you might get it, or there are various versions of that, I guess in almost every language. And I suppose there have been times in your life, viewed from the outside, where it seemed you must have everything that anybody could want, and people would be saying, well, I wish I had his problem, I'd love to, all of that.
Yes, but...
have you, in fact, or I'm not sure what I want to know about that. What does it feel like to be in that position? Do you ever fear that the gods will envy you in the Greek sense in times like that?
You're talking about hubris and
I suppose, yeah,
overweening pride and
all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think I've tried to avoid it. It was very difficult sometimes, especially when you're very young.
Yeah.
But all the time, if there's the slightest suggestion that I'm going to feel smug about my career, about my work or whatever, when I've been particularly successful, life goes in cycles, and sometimes you're on top of that cycle, and everything you touch turns to gold, and then you can't do anything right. So, and when I'm very much on top, then I think of the very fine actors that I know. I ran into one in London recently who hadn't had a job for 14 years, and yet he'd played very strong supporting parts at the Old Vic when I was there. And I think of him and people like him. There are thousands. And thank the gods that I'm at least not in that position. and at the same time feel for them so that I don't get too cocky and believe that I'm some sort of minor god or something. Because hubris is a thing that can kill you. No question about it.
Pride. And
Pride.
Yeah. People are out there wondering if I'm ever going to have the guts to mention the name Elizabeth Taylor in your presence. And I don't know that I am. But partly because your more than lovely wife was backstage. But I would like to know one thing, and this interests me and may be far too technical for people's tastes, but she is said to have a genius for screen acting. And I had seen references of your having learned from her or her.
Oh, yes. I think she's, I know she'll forgive me for saying so, but she is indeed a woman of infinite variety. But I've talked about her so much in the last 20 years, perhaps, that even she is getting tired of what I say about her. Anyway, I like her very much, and she likes me, and I think she's one of the most underrated screen actresses that ever lived, and I think she's one of the best ones who ever lived. At her very finest, she is incomparable.
Among actors, she's highly thought of, but...
Well, for the press, I think, are deceived by her great beauty, and they can't believe that somebody as pretty or as beautiful as that can actually act as well.
Sure.
But there's no question about it that she is a superb screen actress. And I think that in later years, I mean, can you remember Bogart ever having a good notice during his lifetime, except for, shall we say, The African Queen or something like that, where he played something outside himself, slightly outside himself. Yeah. I think that Elizabeth will become a cult figure one of these days, and that her films will be run endlessly on television as bogies are now. Yeah. And people will realize that perhaps she was before her time as an actress. And if you don't mind, I won't say anything more about Elizabeth Taylor.
That's quite all right with me. I didn't want to mention it when you had your shoes off, because then you could leave if you wanted to. Somebody ought to do a book of the bad reviews that the greatest people we know have gotten. I'm amazed whenever doing research of the pans that Olivier has gotten, and Gielgud and people like that. Olivier claims to, Gielgud claims to like them. I mean, he says, yeah, I find them more interesting, and I never can get my other fellow actors to talk about them. They don't seem to find them as interesting. And they say you don't learn anything from praise. But I just wonder if there's any particular film of yours that you would like to have cut up into collar stays that you made.
Most of them, I think.
Most of them?
Yes. No, I actually think there are about 10 or a dozen that are watchable. Not by me, but by other people. I won't watch myself unless I can possibly avoid it. Sometimes I've had to go to Royal Command performances and so on, where I've been forced to sit there. I try to bury my head in my hands, but it's very difficult if the Queen is looking straight at you.
Doing what you and Bogart did to that man. I guess there isn't just any one film that you hope, if it's ever on the Late Show, you have the set removed from the...
No, well, there are many. You know, somebody came, a publicity man, one of those chaps who knows everything about films, and he came up to me about 2 or 3 years ago and said, "Congratulations." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "This is your 60th film." And I said, "My God, I didn't think I'd made as many films as that." So, because I've done so much stage as well. Yeah. So I went back to the dressing room, and my makeup man and my great friend of mine, who's been with me for years, we sat down, we wrote down the names of the films, and we'd forgotten 14 of them. It's an indication of the quality of the film.
Forget an entire movie, let alone 14 of them, must be.
It wasn't just I had forgotten, no, they'd forgotten.
They'd had too. I promise you this won't go on forever, but there are just one or two things I need to know from you before we end, which may necessitate your being here tomorrow night. Only one person? Anyway, we'll keep our fingers crossed and try to see you then, because I haven't said goodbye properly, and I can't tonight, so I'll have to do it tomorrow.